Most coaches are broke. And in this video, I want to try to make my case for why you should stop building your coaching business and instead switch to an agency or consultancy model if you want to make a lot of money. This video is for you if you're a coach who's just getting started or who's struggling to get clients. If you want to break into the B2B services space or grow inside of it, then agency or consulting models are far superior. Because the fact is, there are several structural reasons for why coaching probably won't make you rich, especially if you're unproven in a specific domain. And so let's get to the bottom of it. Let's analyze why that is, what kind of business model is better for you, and especially how can you transition if so far you've been in the coaching space, you want to transition into something more profitable, and how you can do that. My name is Michael Bohannes. We help B2B consultants, coaches, and agency owners build scalable client acquisition systems so that they can stop depending on referrals. I've now held 1,000+ sales calls with coaches, consultants, and agency owners. And I can confidently say that even if I exclude all the life coaches and confidence and mindset coaches who are more in the B2C space, and if I exclude those from the sample, business coaches are far more broke than any other B2B service providers. For every consultant or agency owner who's making 10 to 20K a month with their business, there's like 10 coaches who are just scraping to get by. And most coaches in reality still have a job that they just don't list on their LinkedIn profile. They present themselves as exclusively a coach. And then when you dig a little bit, you scratch below the surface, it turns out that they still have a normal corporate job. And this video is informed by 3 conversations that I had with 3 coaches recently. One was a really smart guy, let's call him John, with a past career in a blue chip consulting firm. 1.5 years into his executive coaching career, he's making 4K a month on average with a very generic executive coaching offer where he helps leaders to get unstuck and overcome corporate inertia to build the career you deserve, right? Another one, let's call him Jack. He had an illustrious career as a CEO of a company that at its peak employed over 1,000 people. And despite that, he was struggling to get any coaching clients. He wanted to be like a business sounding board, 0. And finally, I recently spoke to a coach who I'll call Andrew, who has led a sales team of 20 people in his corporate career. And he, in the last 12, 14 months, he's been posting prolifically on LinkedIn. And since he started his business about 14 months ago, had 0 clients, right? All in the name of building on my coaching value proposition. Okay, so that's just a small sample of the coaches that I speak to on a regular basis. And while I'm sure there's also agencies and consultants who struggle in a similar way, the average coach makes far less than the average consultant or agency owner. But before we get into the why, let's first define terms of agency, consulting, and coaching. Those are the 3 main models of B2B service businesses. There's also trainers, freelancers, and contractors, and they will get an honorable mention, but they are subcategories of the 3 main models. And these 3 models exist on a continuum based on how much work you actually do for the company. Right. And so number 1, agency work, that of course is the most done for you. And I consider people who call themselves freelancers, especially those you can find on Upwork and other such platforms, they are very similar to agency work, right? You hire freelancers or agencies for a specific task where you miss the in-house either time or skills to actually do that work yourself, right? So the only difference between freelancers and agencies is the level of ambition. Freelancers usually want to stay on their own. Somebody who starts an agency ultimately wants to hire so that they can mostly relationship build on a high level, but somebody else delivers the work, right? And that's the difference. Now, in contrast, consulting work has the unique characteristic that unlike an agency, it works on the business, right? It improves a dedicated area in the business. For example, let's say marketing or operations or supply chain. An agency is simply adding another person into the boat so that the company can row, whereas consulting is much more a kind of figuring out how can we sort of rebuild the boat so that we can attach a motor to it so that we can move faster and just use an engine, right? That's the difference between consulting and agency work. Now, consultants often don't do much implementation work, and that's because they have specialized knowledge and therefore tend to be a little bit expensive. So their work remains on the analytical level and often doesn't involve implementation, right? McKinsey is the perfect example of that. And this is, of course, where the famous 200-slide PowerPoint decks comes from and the monster spreadsheets, etc. This is the kind of analytical work that these people get paid top dollar for. There are some consulting agency hybrid models where the senior people do the analytical work and then the junior staff does the implementation. So that exists, but on average, that exists, but usually those 2 models are separate. Now, finally, coaching is most often focused on people and their performance. In that sense, it also works sort of on the business and it seeks to improve individuals, whereas consulting takes a more holistic approach and works on a system, on the organizational level. Consulting might then conclude as part of the consulting project that in some area, people will need coaching in order to be able to carry the change that the consultants are proposing. So coaching can be a subset, and a necessary corollary of a consulting project. So in that sense, consulting is a wider systemic remit. Coaching can be a part of that. The other big difference is that in most cases, coaching has a very strong focus on the actual one-to-one interaction with the client. That is where most value is being added in the interaction. Whereas in consulting, the interactions are usually just data gathering exercises, and the bulk of the value addition comes in the consultant independently analyzing data, creating new narratives, writing presentations, writing new documents, etc., coming up with ways how to change stuff. And this is usually done sort of on their own, independently. In coaching, outside of the interactions, there's usually not a lot of work. And I'm sure there's exceptions to that, where some coaches, really work hard in trying to solve the client's problem. In vast majority of coaching cases, in between sessions, there is very little work done by the coach. Two honorable mentions: being a contractor, that's another B2B service model. However, it's so similar to being an employee that we're not going to get into this. In reality, there's only these three models. And then finally, what about trainers? I put trainers into the coaching bucket. I mean, they work on people. The only difference between a trainer and a coach effectively is that the trainer tends to be there more for a shorter time, right? So they do maybe a couple of training sessions, but then they're out and they work on people in a group. But other than that, it's basically changing how people act. That's what a trainer is. So why is coaching such a losing value proposition, especially if you're relatively early in your B2B service business growth journey? There are four reasons. Number one is simple math. There's just far more demand for agency and consulting work than there is for coaching. Companies simply need more hands on deck, right? People solving actual problems, moving projects along. Then they need somebody who tells them how to behave, okay, which is often what coaches do effectively. Of all the money, for example, that I have spent, and this is like a data point that is even generous to coaches, of all the money that I as a business have paid to other people's services, right? If we define even employees and done for you work and coaching, if I just add all of that up, more than 90% has gone to employees, subcontractors, and people doing stuff for me, doing actual work, hands on deck. And only 10% has gone to coaches, where I invest in somebody to make me better as a business owner. And that is, by the way, me, who's very open to the idea of coaching. And this is really important because if you want to approach a company and you want to provide some service to them, 9 out of 10 times they will need something done rather than being told what they need to do. And again, this is mostly in cases where people are even open to the idea of coaching. Many companies are not. So my 9 to 10 split is even generous towards coaching. Second reason why coaching is so hard to sell. Coaching is very nice. It's very comfortable. Telling people how to shovel sand is much more pleasant as an activity than actually picking up the shovel and shoveling yourself. And this, of course, means because the work is so much nicer, it's so much nicer to be telling people how to behave, that way more people pile into this profession. And that, of course, pushes prices down. Third reason, and that's a real wicked one, coaching takes a longer time to see if you're any good, if you have any real expertise, right? When you coach someone and their life doesn't change, you can kind of always blame it on them or extraneous circumstances. However, if as an agency you're supposed to make Facebook ads work, or you're supposed to decrease the cost of a supply chain as a consultant by 5 to 10%, decrease warehousing costs, for example, or your UX work, for example, is supposed to reduce SaaS subscriber churn, right? Those kind of results will show within 3, maybe 6 months whether you're any good. So there's a strong level of accountability in agency and consulting work. It doesn't exist like that really in coaching work. And this lack of accountability, of course, means that, again, more people pile into the profession because people want to avoid responsibility. They want to escape accountability. And also, therefore, way more losers, charlatans, and airheads pile into the coaching profession, which makes it much harder for you as an ethical player in the coaching space to stand out. And all of this, of course, makes clients super skeptical. Like they have no way or very few ways of telling whether you're any good. There's a great scene in Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry makes his therapist apologize to Larry's ex-wife for having given Larry some bad advice. And the scene is so funny, mostly because this never happens, right? Advice givers are rarely, almost never being held accountable for, being forced to tell, yes, I gave Larry some bad advice, like in this clip.
So, what do you guys need to tell me?
Go ahead, Bright.
Okay. I gave Larry some flawed advice.
And the last reason why coaching is also much more difficult to sell is because this lack of accountability leads to a lack of your objective metrics that you can point to as a success story when people, in the coaching context, give you positive testimonials. It's usually about in the sense of, oh, Jane is amazing, such a great coach. She helped me break through my obstacles, and that is generally quite subjective. It cannot really be measured, and therefore it's very hard to use in a prospecting sense, right? If as an agency you say, look, these are our success stories, we've helped these clients, grow their Facebook ad revenue by whatever, 50%, that's a clear success story that you can point to that is binary, yes or no. When it comes to coaching, it's usually like a gut feeling. Do I like this person, right? Do I trust them, etc.? Highly subjective. Nobody will be able to say this is a competent coach. And so all of these factors compound and make coaching generally one big, massive cluster F, right? And remember, I'm even excluding all the life, mindset, and confidence coaches. I mean, that space is one massive freak show of digital vagrants who just, panhandle for money. I mean, very few exceptions. I'm only looking at this whole world of business coaches, mentors, business sounding boards, board advisors, etc. You'd be shocked at how little these people actually make. Like people who on the surface look great, and then you talk to them and they make 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 a month, like constantly. In reality, there are only 4 paths for you to get to multiple 6 or even 7 figures as a business coach, any kind of business coaching as an advice giver. Number 1 is those people who really make it, they have like massive accomplishments. We're talking 0.001%. And this is really very depressing, where talking to people is quite sad because so many wannabe coaches, they just so overestimate their accomplishments, right? Only because you worked at a blue chip firm and you got promoted several times and you made it to director level at whatever, Google, Facebook, or any other such company, it doesn't mean that you will have much to offer in a coaching context. I'm sorry, it just won't. Unless somebody really wants to get exactly follow your path, your career trajectory. But how many people are in that space, especially when it's industry specific? I know it's harsh, but it is true. Even if you've run departments and even companies of hundreds of employees, sorry, it's just not good enough to be a coach. That in itself. Only in combination with maybe other things that we'll get into. And what's so sad about this is that even if you've had a decent, like above average, let's say top 10% career, you have one specific expertise, let's say sales, operations, supply chain, whatever, you've had a good career there, you could really make it to 20, 30, 40K a month as a consultant or agency owner. You really can. I mentioned Coach Andrew before, who had run a sales team of 20 people in his corporate career in the past. I bet he could be a successful sales consultant, right? Or sales trainer who improves companies' sales system. A sales trainer, maybe slightly less, but consultant who really gets into it. He analyzes the data. He tells them, okay, here's how to improve it. And he does it in a space that he really knows very well, right? Great. That would be absolutely viable. And he can stand up for results. He could say, I'm going to increase your sales team performance by 10% within 6 months or your money back, right? With a credible background, he absolutely could do that. He'd be at 20, 30K a month in no time. But that's, of course, more tedious and more hard work where you will have to be accountable for results. And Andrew disliked the idea so much that he'd rather make a fraction of that money, I mean, in his case, 0, as long as he can just coach people and just give people advice and tell them what they should do, right? Without incurring any accountability. So this is one of the 4 paths, like having really such significant accomplishments. Like if you have been, the second in command at Microsoft, yes, then probably you will be able to coach. Like that kind of 0.001% accomplishment probably is good enough so that you can become a successful coach, like executive coach. Okay, so that alone. Let's look at number 2. Another path of making it big is if you're like an incredible communicator. Like you are so good at content. For example, you've written a book that has been successful, not just a book that sits on a shelf, right? But a book that has been really successful, picked up, reviewed, has real substance to it. Or you've given like a TED talk. TEDx talk maybe was probably not good enough. TED talk will need to be, right? And that very often in combination with a unique method or kind of mind virus. Think Simon Sinek and Start with Why, or Mel Robbins and the 5 Second Rule, or Jocko Willink and Discipline is Freedom, right? Those kind of communicators, yes, absolutely. If you can break through like this, could be. Again, this is like a matter of the 0.00001%, right? The third option, and this is one where really I think you can do it, if you're a true, dedicated, lifelong student of the craft. Like I once met a lovely lady, she was probably in her late 20s, and she, from like the point where she was 15, she just loved the whole idea of coaching. She became a Tony Robbins certified life coach by whatever, some kind of crazy young age, and so on. And she was amazing. Like I've worked with her as part of another program, and she was so good. I so enjoyed talking to her. You could see this, the woman is so passionate about this work that you totally believe her. That because she was a real student of the coaching craft, right? You could totally see it was oozing out of her pores. She was born to be a life coach. So you have to be a true, dedicated, lifelong student of the craft, and not just a fired executive who's looking for, an interim gig before his next employment. And until you reach that point, it's best to start very early, where you don't have high cost, and you need to be willing to undergo years of penury. And option number 4, how you can make it as a coach, is you somehow have amassed an exceptionally strong network to the point where deals basically just come to you. There are these people who have this magic touch where they've had a decent corporate career, but they are such good networkers. They are so well connected that somehow they can make that work. And if you are that person, you know this, right? You will not need to, am I such a person? No, if you don't already have like 10K, 20K in coaching clients of like high-level executives, you are not that person. And so I have seen several successful business coaches, executive coaches, and all of them fit into at least one of these categories. Quite often there's several of them. Like they're really good students of the craft, and they have amassed a significant network. Or they have really good accomplishments, not like exceptional 0.001, but maybe 0.1%. But also they've written a book and they've done TEDx talks, etc. Yes, this can work. But most importantly, very few of them have any kind of coaching certification, for example. And even if they do have them, they're not instrumental at all in their success. Certifications are useful to elevate you above the complete bottom feeders in your industry. It gets you away from the people who are making whatever, 1,000 a month. And a coaching certification gets you certain level of credibilities. You can land a couple of corporate gigs who ask for this as a requirement. And that allows you to get to 3 to 5K a month, maybe, if that. But it's never going to be the thing that gets you to 20K. So certifications are not really relevant. And so the conclusion of all of this is, if you're not in either one of those categories, get ready for many, many years of leanness and penury. And the only get out of jail free card, the only exception to that is if you can offer your clients specific results and you're willing to back that up with a money back guarantee. And that's better. But even this only works if you also have a strong track record in actually doing the thing that you're going to be coaching them about. Because without that, you will lack the credibility that serious people need in order to hire you, right? Even if you come with a money back guarantee. Like a successful person probably won't take you on as a serious coach if you say, well, but if you don't get this result, then you're going to get your money back. I don't really care. I'd be willing to pay, let's say, a YouTube coach 10K if he or she can get me to whatever it will be, 10,000 subscribers or whatever average 1,000 views per video. I'd be very happy to pay that. And I'm not willing to waste my time on somebody who is going to give me money back if it doesn't work. It's just not worth the time. However, 5 years ago, I probably would have done that because there I was like less demanding and I had less to offer and I could also pay less. So I was more willing to trade my time. Now time is becoming more valuable to me than money. By the way, in case you're asking, satisfaction-based money-back guarantees, stay away from that. Nobody believes them anyway because people are not psychopaths and they will never want to actually say, but I'm not satisfied, give me my money back. It just rarely happens. People know that. They don't work. And so money-back guarantees, they only work in the context of coaching a specific skill. It doesn't really work on broad executive coaching offers like, oh, help you get unstuck in your career or become a better communicator, right? It does work in areas like sales and marketing where there's quantifiable results. Again, it's all about the quantifiable results. And this is, by the way, what I've made work for us at the Alpha Lead Academy. We effectively run a variant of the coaching model, but it's a far superior variant, which is the playbook model, which is a soup to nuts implementation solution for a complex problem that a specific avatar faces, right? Our avatars, coaches, consultants, agency owners, their problem is client acquisition systems. They more or less know how to get clients, but they don't really have a system in it. We solve that problem for them from beginning, from creating an offer, becoming really clear about the avatar, to down to how to run sales calls, right? The whole value chain of client acquisition. And sure, we could also solve it for them on a done for you basis, but those solutions tend to not be very durable, like lead gen agencies, right? It's like if you can use a lead gen agency, sure, you're going to get 2, 3 clients, maybe if that, and then it will stop working, and they're not invested enough in your success so that they keep working for you. And also, the demand supply curve often just doesn't work out in a viable way so that people who are at, let's say, high five or low six figures, that they would be able to afford a really good person who does done for you for them. Right? Like the good agencies, they start at like at least 5K, if not 10K a month. That's where the really good done for you players start. And so that's why we are offering a coaching solution. And so it could appear that I'm being a hypocrite here. Here's me arguing against coaching as a business model while having a sort of a coaching business, although playbook business is a bit different, but still we tell people what to do, having that kind of business myself. The difference is we offer a playbook model, which is far superior to just coaching, right? I'm not telling somebody to get unstuck in your career, or get unstuck in your business. It's not. We offer like a real hardcore solution from beginning to end where you're going to get like a little MBA in sales and marketing with us, right? Then second, we offer money back guarantee on very generous terms. Number 3, we have dozens of success stories on our website. And I had been running a done for you business in the past where I have amassed success stories, right? So if you don't have these 4 advantages, or at least a combination thereof, you'll be far better off starting with a done for you service, build up your success portfolio, and then transition into a playbook coaching model backed up by a money back guarantee, right? Build a specific portfolio of skills, much better. And so starting a coaching business right off the bat, especially where you're offering something as really like generic executive coaching, like for example, what I saw recently, helping leaders master self-determination, break free from corporate inertia and get unstuck from an intractable work situation so that you can refuel your passion, expand your effectiveness, and achieve significant professional growth on your own terms. If you do that, is really a recipe for long-term stagnation unless you have, one of those 4 big advantages. So all of this is to say, if you're struggling to get business coaching clients, or you're thinking of becoming a business coach without a 0.001% track record, without having written a successful book, without having a network that already now is paying you 10 to 20K, if you don't have any of that, just stop. Don't do it. I really recommend against it. Start an agency instead. Promise specific results. Do it in an area where there are already agencies. Don't be creative. Just copy that's already working. Gradually, as you get experience, you can develop your unique flavor. But in the beginning, you can copy your way to 10K a month without a hitch, right? So do it in an area where there's agencies already. Marketing, sales, video editing, UX, recruiting. Alternatively, if you have a very specific functional knowledge and expertise and a track record in corporate, do consulting such as manufacturing operations, supply chain, finance. All of that works. These type of businesses work, and you can get to 10, 20K, no, not saying easily, but it's far more predictable and far more results driven than coaching. And so charge very little in the beginning. If you start an agency where you don't have much expertise, admit to clients that you're just breaking into this space and you just want to have the opportunity to serve them. Go out of your way to delivering great value to them without charging them a lot, maybe success fees only after the fact, etc. That will focus your mind on actually adding value to them. And the great thing about agency model is that you can really learn from the ground up, and you learn on the customer's dime, and that is not unethical. And charge very little in the beginning. If you start an agency where you don't have much expertise, admit to clients that you don't have much of a clue about this space and only get paid if you bring results, right? That will focus your mind on actually adding value. This is the great thing about agency models, where you could literally have zero clue on how to edit videos, and just by studying a bit, 10, 20 hours of learning how to edit videos, you could a year from now be at 5K, even maybe 10K a month. Then collect success stories, start charging a little bit more every time you close a client, and once you have 10, ideally 20 proven success stories where people actually go on camera and say, yes, name is really good at what they do. This is the result that they brought us. We were at X% closing rate. Now we are at Y% closing rate, thanks to you, right? If you then have that, then you can start coaching, but only that form of coaching where you promise specific results and you refund them if you cannot get them that result. And if you're worried that you will have too many competitors if you enter one of those agency or consulting spaces, then here's a video to tell you why you should not fear competitors, even if they are much, much better than you.